Zira stood on the edge of the platform, staring at the endless stretch of stars beyond the colony of Valora. Her hands trembled slightly, but she did not move. The cold metal beneath her boots reflected the dim light of the artificial sun overhead. She had flown through countless storms in space, faced dangerous missions, and survived accidents that could have ended any ordinary pilot's life. But nothing had prepared her for the loss she had just endured. Her spouse, Terran, had been her partner not only in life but in every mission. Together, they had charted the edges of Valora's territory, mapped dangerous asteroid fields, and rescued stranded miners from deadly failures. Terran had been brave, careful, and wise. Losing him in the mining accident had left Zero feeling hollow. The thought of never seeing his smile again, never hearing his voice, or feeling the warmth of his hand in hers was unbearable. The council had been quick to blame her for the accident. They said she had ignored protocols and put lives at risk. In truth, the accident had been caused by a sudden asteroid collapse. There was nothing she could have done. Yet, the council's verdict was final. Zero was found guilty of negligence and sentenced to exile on Kylos, a barren moon with no life, no food, and no water. The punishment was meant to be permanent. The officials gave her no chance to argue. They claimed she had to be removed for the safety of the colony. Zira had tried to speak, to explain that the disaster was not her fault, but the council's cold voices shut her down. "Your presence here risks the colony," the lead official had said. "You will be sent to Kylos to live or die by the laws of that world." Now, she was standing alone, her ship docked at the edge of the launch bay. The engines hummed faintly, ready to carry her to the barren moon. Her survival suit was tight and uncomfortable, but it was her only protection. It carried enough air for weeks, a few nutrient packs, and nothing else. The cold metal walls of the ship reflected her own sorrowful face. Zira took a deep breath and stepped onto the launch platform. The hatch closed behind her with a heavy thud. The control panel lit up in front of her, showing the route to Kylos. The moon was a gray, lifeless rock, covered in jagged cliffs and deep valleys. No vegetation, no water sources, nothing. She knew the stories well. Many exiles sent there had never returned. She was expected to die alone. As the engines roared to life, Zira closed her eyes and remembered Terran. She remembered the laughter they shared while repairing the ship, the quiet moments of stargazing, the promise to always protect each other. Those memories were bittersweet. They made her heart ache, but they also gave her a strange sense of strength. She could not let her life end here. Not like this. The journey to Kylos was long. Zira kept the ship on autopilot and sat silently, listening to the quiet hum of the engines. She rationed the small amount of water she had, taking tiny sips every few hours. The nutrient packs were unappetizing, but they kept her body functioning. She forced herself to think of a plan, to focus on survival, even if the odds were against her. When the ship finally approached Kylos, she could see the moon's surface stretching endlessly beneath her. Sharp cliffs and deep craters reflected the weak sunlight. The gray landscape seemed to swallow all hope. Zira's stomach tightened. She knew she had to find shelter immediately. The landing was rough, and the ship's feet sank slightly into the rocky ground, but it held. Stepping out of the ship, Zira felt the bitter wind of Kylos cut through her suit. She looked around at the desolate world. There were no signs of life, no sounds beyond the occasional whistle of the wind. Her heart pounded in her chest. This was the reality she had been condemned to. Survival would not be easy. Every step she took had to be careful. Every breath, every movement mattered. Zira explored the nearby cliffs, searching for a place that could offer even a small amount of protection. She found a shallow cave that blocked the wind and provided some cover. It was small and uncomfortable, but it would do for now. She set up a makeshift bed with the thin insulation sheets from her ship and stored her nutrient packs carefully. Every ration had to last. Every decision mattered. The first night on Kylos was the hardest. Zira sat in the cave, staring at the dark sky, thinking of Terran. She felt the crushing weight of loneliness pressing down on her. Fear tried to creep in, whispering that she would not survive. But Zira refused to give in. She remembered everything Terran had taught her about resilience and courage. She closed her eyes, took slow breaths, and reminded herself that even in the darkest place, hope could still exist. Days passed slowly. Zira learned to move carefully across the jagged terrain, avoiding loose rocks and hidden cliffs. She discovered small patches of minerals that could be used for basic tools. She began marking her path, noting every resource she could find. She made small improvements to her shelter, creating walls from rocks and strengthening her cave entrance. Survival was a constant struggle, but she refused to surrender. As Zira adapted to her new reality, she started keeping a digital journal. She wrote about Terran, about the Council, about her hopes and fears. Writing gave her a sense of purpose. It reminded her that she was still human, still capable of thought, reflection, and planning. Even though the world seemed lifeless, she refused to let her spirit die. One morning, while scanning the horizon, she noticed a faint glimmer. At first, she thought it was a reflection from the rocks, but it moved. A small shadow darted across the cliffs. Zira's heart leapt. Was it another human? Could someone have survived here before her? She studied the movement carefully, her survival instincts sharpening. She knew the appearance of another being could be dangerous, or it could be the first sign of hope. Zira did not know what the future held, but she understood one thing clearly: she would fight to survive. Kylos was harsh, unforgiving, and lonely, but she was stronger than the Council's judgment. She was a pilot, a survivor, and a fighter. No matter how desolate the world, she refused to let it take her life without a fight. With renewed determination, Zira prepared for the days ahead. She collected more rocks for shelter, studied the terrain, and rationed her supplies carefully. She was alone, but not defeated. Somewhere in the silence of Kylos, a spark of hope had been lit. Zira would survive, and she would prove that even in the worst circumstances, a human's courage and determination could shine brighter than any darkness. The sun over Kylos rose slowly, casting a weak, gray light across the barren landscape. Zira stretched carefully, feeling the stiffness in her muscles from the long night. The cave she had found offered some protection from the wind, but the cold still seeped into her bones. She knew that every day would be a struggle. Each step outside her shelter meant facing the harsh, rocky terrain and the biting wind that carried the scent of dust and stone. Zira checked her supplies first. The nutrient packs were enough for a few more days, and the water rations were nearly half gone. She calculated carefully how to make them last. Wasting even a single sip could be fatal. Her survival depended on careful planning, and she was determined to use every resource wisely. She moved outside the cave and looked around the endless gray cliffs. There was no vegetation, no sign of animals, nothing alive except the rocks and wind. Yet Zira refused to give up. She had survived disasters in space before, and she knew that humans could endure even the most difficult challenges if they stayed calm and smart. Her first task each day was to search for anything that could help her. She examined the rocks, looking for minerals or hidden pockets of water. Kylos was cruel in its barrenness, but it was not entirely lifeless. Small streams of condensation appeared on the rocks in the early morning, tiny amounts that could be collected if handled carefully. Zira gathered what she could, using pieces of metal from her ship to create small containers. It was not much, but every drop mattered. The isolation was harder than the hunger or the cold. Zira spoke to herself to break the silence. She gave names to the rocks and cliffs she passed, turning the barren world into something she could relate to. It helped her mind stay strong. Writing in her digital journal became her most important task. She described the landscape, the weather, her emotions, and even small victories, like finding condensation or securing a safe path through the cliffs. One day, while exploring a narrow canyon, Zira noticed something unusual. A small glimmer reflected in the rock. She approached carefully and saw a piece of metal, partially buried under dust. It was not from her ship. Her pulse quickened. Could someone else have been here before? She examined it closely. The metal had strange markings, unfamiliar to her. It was a mystery, but it gave her a sense of hope. Perhaps she was not truly alone. That night, she built a small fire using the minerals and materials she had gathered. The sparks from the fire illuminated her cave, creating dancing shadows on the walls. Zira sat close to it, feeling warmth seep back into her body. She ate a nutrient pack slowly, savoring every bite. Even though the food was bland, it reminded her that she could survive. Her mind, she realized, was as important to nourish as her body. She needed hope, strategy, and courage to last. Days turned into a week. Zira developed routines to keep herself alive and sane. She rationed water carefully, collected condensation each morning, and examined the terrain for any signs of life. She started marking the cliffs with small scratches and symbols, creating a map of the area she had explored. Her shelter grew stronger as she reinforced the walls with rocks and debris. She built a small signal reflector using pieces of her ship, hoping that someone passing by might see it. Despite her careful planning, Zira faced dangers daily. Loose rocks threatened to tumble under her feet, sharp cliffs could cause injury, and sudden gusts of wind sometimes threw her off balance. Each time she faced these challenges, she reminded herself that humans were built to adapt. She could not control Kylos, but she could control her mind and her actions. She focused on staying alert, moving carefully, and thinking ahead. One morning, while climbing a steep ridge, Zira noticed movement in the distance. Her heart leapt. She froze, scanning the horizon carefully. A shadow shifted near a cliff far away, disappearing behind a rock. Her mind raced. Was it an animal, a mirage, or another human? She had hoped she was alone, yet the possibility of another presence both frightened and excited her. Zira decided to investigate cautiously. She marked her starting point, making sure she could return safely, and moved quietly across the rocks. The wind blew against her, making her step slow and careful. The shadow had disappeared, but small traces remained, faint footprints in the dust, broken stones, and the glimmer of metal reflecting the weak sunlight. Someone or something had passed this way. Her curiosity grew, but so did caution. She remembered stories from the colony about explorers and exiles who had encountered hostile travelers on barren moons. She did not want to be caught unprepared. She returned to her cave, reinforcing the entrance and preparing a small lookout. From there, she could observe the ridge without exposing herself. Patience, she reminded herself, was as important as courage. As the days passed, Zira observed more signs. The shadows sometimes moved at the edges of the cliffs, and faint noises reached her ears, the scrape of metal against stone or a distant shout carried by the wind. She did not know who or what was out there, but she realized she was not entirely alone. This knowledge sparked something new inside her. Hope. The realization that someone else might exist on Kylos meant that survival was possible, and connection could be found even in the most isolated places. Zira also began experimenting with small survival strategies. She created a water collection system using pieces of metal and angled surfaces to capture condensation more efficiently. She dug shallow trenches to slow wind near her shelter and used mineral shards to build small traps for any small creatures that might appear. Every day, she learned something new about Kylos, turning the barren moon into a place she could navigate. At night, she sat near her fire and reflected on her memories of Terran. The pain of loss was still there, but it became a source of strength rather than weakness. She remembered Terran's courage, patience, and intelligence. If he were here, he would have found a way to survive, and so could she. She wrote in her journal, noting her strategies, emotions, and the possibility of someone else on the moon. Writing gave her clarity and focus, transforming fear into determination. Zira realized that Kylos, as harsh as it was teaching her something important. Survival depended not only on physical strength but on observation, creativity, and emotional resilience. She had learned to conserve her energy, ration her supplies, and adapt to every challenge. Every step, every small discovery, every careful decision strengthened her mind and body. She was no longer just surviving, she was learning to thrive in a place that seemed impossible. One evening, as the weak sunlight faded behind the cliffs, Zira spotted a flicker of movement again. She held her breath, watching. It was brief, but unmistakable. Something or someone was there. Her heart beat faster, but this time, fear did not control her. She felt excitement. Perhaps her exile was not the end. Perhaps someone would find her, or she could find them. Zira settled in for the night, keeping watch from the cave entrance. Her supplies were running low, but her determination was stronger than ever. Kylos had not broken her spirit. She knew that survival was only the first step. The possibility of connection, of finding another human being, gave her hope for a future she had once thought impossible. And so, Zira waited, watched, and prepared. She had learned to survive the barren moon, and now she began to dream of what might come next. Zira had been living on Kylos for nearly a month. Every day had been a battle against hunger, cold, and isolation. Yet, she had survived. She had grown stronger, smarter, and more determined. The barren moon had tried to break her spirit, but instead, it had made her resilient. Each night, she kept watch from her cave, her eyes scanning the cliffs and valleys for any sign of life. One morning, as the weak sunlight spread over the gray rocks, she noticed something unusual. A faint glimmer moved across the ridge far away. Her heart leapt. She froze, careful not to make any noise. The glimmer shifted again. It was definitely not a mirage. Someone was moving across the cliffs. Zira's mind raced. Could it be another exile? Or was it a rescue mission from the colony? She decided to approach cautiously. Every step had to be careful, every movement precise. Loose rocks could betray her presence, and sudden noise could scare away whoever or whatever it was. She moved slowly along a narrow path, keeping the cliffs between her and the glimmer. Her heart beat fast, but she reminded herself to stay calm. Survival was as much about patience as it was about courage. As she drew closer, Zira could see more clearly. A human figure was climbing carefully, carrying a small pack. The person wore a suit similar to hers, but it was different in color and design. He was clearly from a distant colony, not from Valora. Zira watched from behind a rock, studying him. He seemed cautious, scanning the terrain as carefully as she did. His presence was a surprise, but it also gave her hope. She was not alone. The man noticed her first. His eyes widened as he froze in place. Zira realized that any sudden movement could make him run or attack. She raised her hand slowly and stepped into the open, showing that she meant no harm. "I am not dangerous," she called out in a calm voice. The man blinked and lowered his makeshift weapon, relief crossing his face. "My name is Aaron," he said, his voice steady but wary. "I am searching for minerals." "Who are you?" "I am Zira," she replied. "I was sent here by the colony. I survived on this moon alone for weeks." Her voice carried a mixture of pride and caution. "I am not a threat. Please, I need your help. Do you have food or water?" Aaron nodded slowly, reaching into his pack. He handed her a small pouch of nutrient bars and a water container. Zira took them gratefully, feeling strength return with every sip and bite. For the first time in weeks, she felt real relief. Her body had been starving, but her spirit had been stronger. Now, the presence of another human gave her hope she had not felt since leaving Valora. They moved together back to Zira's cave, careful to avoid loose rocks and unstable cliffs. On the way, Aaron explained his mission. He had come to Kylos to collect rare minerals for his colony. He had been unaware that anyone could be stranded here. Zira told him briefly about her exile and survival. Aaron listened with awe and respect. "You are incredibly strong," he said. "I cannot imagine surviving here alone." Inside the cave, they shared the food and water, replenishing their strength. Zira noticed that having another person nearby was not only physically comforting but emotionally soothing. She could speak freely, share her thoughts, and laugh quietly at the absurdities of survival. Aaron told her stories of his own adventures, and Zira felt a warmth she had not known in weeks. After the meal, they worked together to improve the shelter. Aaron had tools and materials that complemented Zira's knowledge of the terrain. They reinforced the walls of the cave, created a windbreak, and dug a small trench to divert occasional rainwater that fell from Kylo's weak clouds. Working together felt natural. Zira realized that human connection was as important as food or water. It gave courage, ideas, and hope. Days passed, and their partnership strengthened. Zira taught Aaron how to navigate the cliffs safely, pointing out loose rocks and hidden cracks. Aaron showed Zira how to use some of his equipment to improve their water collection system. Each day brought small victories, more water, better shelter, and a sense of community. Zira had survived alone, but she now understood that survival with a companion was more efficient and far more fulfilling. One afternoon, while exploring a nearby canyon, they discovered strange markings on the rocks. Someone had passed here before, leaving symbols and scratches. Zira felt a mixture of curiosity and caution. Could there be other humans on Kylos? They followed the markings carefully but found no one. Still, the discovery reminded them that even barren worlds could have hidden histories. It gave Zira hope that she was part of something larger, that her struggle could have meaning beyond mere survival. As nights fell on Kylos, the wind grew colder, and the darkness more complete. Yet Zira no longer feared the isolation. With Aaron by her side, she had companionship, support, and shared knowledge. They built small routines to stay safe, keeping watch in turns, rationing food carefully, and planning their exploration of the cliffs. Zira noticed that her fears had lessened. She felt stronger, more capable, and ready to face whatever the moon would throw at them next. One night, while sitting near the fire, Zira and Aaron spoke about their lives before Kylos. Zira shared memories of Terran, her spouse, and the adventures they had shared. Aaron listened with empathy, never interrupting, showing that he understood loss and resilience. In return, he shared his hopes for his colony and dreams of discovering new resources. Their conversation deepened their trust, creating a bond based on respect, experience, and shared hardship. The moon was harsh, but together, Zira and Aaron found joy in small things, a successful water trap, a clear path through jagged rocks, or the first glimpse of sunlight reflecting off a mineral shard. Survival was no longer just about enduring, it was about learning, adapting, and discovering strength in companionship. Zira had learned that even in the harshest worlds, human connection could transform despair into determination. By the end of the week, they were ready to explore further together. They planned to map the cliffs, search for hidden caves, and gather minerals that could support both of their survival. The barren world of Kylos was no longer an enemy. It had become a place of challenge, learning, and growing resilience. And for the first time in weeks, Zira felt a spark of excitement about the future. The encounter with Aaron had changed everything. Zira was no longer a lone exile fighting against impossible odds. She had found an ally, a friend, and a reminder that even in the most desolate places, humans could find strength and hope in each other. Together, they faced Kylos with determination, ready to turn survival into triumph. And as the weak sunlight faded behind the cliffs, Zira smiled. For the first time since her exile, she believed that she could not only survive but thrive. Kylos was no longer just a prison. It was a place where human courage, intelligence, and connection could shine against the harshest odds. The cold wind of Kylos blew relentlessly, but Zira and Aaron had learned to face it together. Their shelter had become more than a temporary hideout, it was a small fortress carved into the cliffside. Zira had always been resourceful, but Aaron's tools and knowledge added a new dimension to their survival. They reinforced the walls with layers of rocks, created a windbreak using metal scraps, and dug shallow trenches to direct the rare water runoff into their containers. Each improvement strengthened both their security and their confidence. Every day, they explored the nearby cliffs to find additional resources. Zira taught Aaron how to read the terrain, showing him the safest paths and warning him about hidden cracks. Aaron shared his skills in using his portable scanner to detect water pockets beneath the surface. The combination of Zira's experience and Aaron's tools made them more effective than they had been alone. Their teamwork slowly built trust between them. Despite the hardships, moments of quiet joy appeared in their routine. Zira showed Aaron how to catch small amounts of condensation from rock surfaces in the morning, while he demonstrated how to use sunlight and reflective materials to signal distant areas. The small victories reminded them that they were capable of adapting, even in a place designed to challenge every human instinct. They laughed at their mistakes and celebrated minor successes, learning that resilience was often strengthened by companionship. One morning, Zira noticed cracks in the cliff above their shelter. Falling rocks could damage their structure or injure them. Together, they spent hours carefully shifting stones and reinforcing the walls. Aaron admired Zira's skill and patience. "I have never met someone so calm in danger," he said. Zira smiled. "I had no choice. Panic would have killed me long before hunger or cold." Their respect for each other grew with each shared task, forming a bond that went beyond mere survival. Food remained a constant concern. The nutrient packs they had were running low, and water was scarce. Zira suggested they explore a deeper canyon where she had noticed unusual mineral formations that might contain water condensation. They packed lightly, carrying only what was essential, and moved cautiously along the jagged cliffs. Each step was deliberate. Falling or slipping could be fatal, but they knew that careful planning increased their chances of success. The canyon revealed a hidden pocket of moisture trapped between rocks. Zira and Aaron carefully collected it in containers, savoring every drop. This small success was a turning point. It reminded them that Kylos, while harsh, was not unbeatable. It also showed the value of working together. Alone, Zira might have found it after weeks of searching, but with Aaron, they located it quickly and efficiently. As they worked, Zira spoke about her life before Kylos. She told Aaron about the colony of Valora, her spouse Terran, and the accident that had led to her exile. Aaron listened quietly, never interrupting. His presence was reassuring. He understood the importance of sharing pain and memories without judgment. In turn, he told her about his home colony, his family, and why he had ventured to Kylos. Listening to each other strengthened their trust. Their bond was tested one afternoon when a sudden storm swept across the cliffs. Wind and dust whipped violently, reducing visibility to almost zero. Zira and Aaron hurried back to the shelter, navigating carefully to avoid loose rocks and deep cracks. Inside the cave, they held each other steady as the storm raged outside. They shared warmth, food, and reassurance. The storm was a reminder that Kylos was unforgiving, but together, they could endure it. When the storm passed, they inspected their shelter for damage. Small stones had shifted, and a few tools had fallen, but overall, the structure held. They laughed quietly at the chaos outside and the fact that they had survived another trial. Zira realized that facing danger with a companion made challenges seem less overwhelming. Aaron had become not only a helper but a source of courage and stability. Zira also began to teach Aaron survival strategies beyond the basics. She showed him how to identify rock formations that could shelter them from sudden wind gusts, how to ration food for maximum efficiency, and how to navigate by observing the sun and shadows. Aaron applied these lessons quickly, impressing Zira with his adaptability. Their combined skills made them feel almost invincible in a place that was meant to defeat anyone who tried to survive alone. One evening, Zira noticed a faint glimmer in the distance. At first, she thought it was a reflection from a rock, but as she watched, it moved. Aaron saw it too. They exchanged a glance. Could it be another human? Or perhaps something natural, like a reflection of minerals in the fading sunlight? They decided to investigate cautiously the next morning. The thought of another presence added both excitement and caution to their daily routine. That night, near the fire, Zira spoke softly. "I never thought I would find someone here," she said. "Even after everything, I thought I would die alone." Aaron nodded. "I know. I felt the same. But now we have each other. That makes all the difference." They shared a quiet smile. The warmth of companionship, combined with hope and determination, filled the cave with a sense of purpose. Over the next few days, they worked on improving their daily routines. They mapped the surrounding cliffs, marked dangerous areas, and identified potential resources. Zira's experience and Aaron's technology complemented each other perfectly. The shelter became more than just a place to survive, it became a base for exploration, planning, and learning. They realized that cooperation amplified their strengths and reduced their weaknesses. As trust grew, so did their confidence in facing challenges. They spoke openly about their fears, their hopes, and even their dreams. Zira began to plan long-term strategies for survival, considering ways to signal for help or explore the distant parts of the moon safely. Aaron contributed ideas and equipment, turning her thoughts into practical solutions. Together, they felt capable of overcoming obstacles that would have seemed impossible alone. By the end of the week, Zira and Aaron had transformed their small shelter into a secure and functional home. They had enough water, improved food rations, and a plan for long-term survival. Most importantly, they had built trust and friendship, understanding that human connection was the strongest resource of all. Kylos remained harsh and unforgiving, but with courage, cooperation, and resilience, Zira and Aaron discovered that even the most barren worlds could be conquered together. Zira sat near the fire that night, watching Aaron adjust the reflector to capture the first light of the rising sun. She felt a calm determination she had not known in weeks. Kylos had tested her, but it had also taught her something invaluable: humans could endure almost anything when they worked together, when they trusted each other, and when they refused to surrender. She smiled softly, feeling hope for the first time in what seemed like forever. Survival was no longer just about food or water, it was about courage, intelligence, and trust. And with Aaron by her side, Zira felt ready for whatever Kylos or the universe might throw at them next. Life on Kylos had grown more manageable for Zira and Aaron. Their shelter was secure, their water supply steady, and their daily routines established. They had mapped much of the nearby cliffs and had discovered hidden pockets of moisture and minerals. Survival was no longer a desperate struggle but a calculated effort. Yet, they knew that Kylos, as harsh as it was not their only challenge. Far away, back at the colony of Valora, the council had been debating Zira's fate. Her survival was unexpected. Official reports suggested that no exile could survive on Kylos for more than a few days. When news reached the council that someone had been spotted near the barren moon, suspicion grew. Some council members feared that Zira might return and reveal their mistakes. If the colony learned that the council had wrongfully sentenced her, their authority could be questioned. The decision was made to send a bounty hunter to Kylos. His mission was clear: ensure that Zira never left the moon alive. The hunter was skilled, equipped with advanced technology, and relentless in pursuit. He did not know of Aaron's presence, nor the bond that had formed between him and Zira. To him, Zira was just another target, another challenge to be eliminated. Zira and Aaron noticed unusual energy signatures on their sensors one morning. Small blips moved across the cliffs, patterns that did not match natural phenomena. Zira's instincts screamed danger. She had faced the harshness of Kylos, but she had never faced another human intent on harming her. She shared her concerns with Aaron. "Something is coming," she said. "I do not know what it is, but it could be dangerous. We must prepare." Aaron nodded, his expression serious. "We will face it together. We know the terrain better than anyone, and we have shelter, tools, and each other." Together, they began to plan. They reinforced the cave walls, created hidden escape paths, and set small traps using rocks and mineral shards. Every detail mattered. Their survival depended on preparation and strategy. For hours, they observed the cliffs, watching for movement. The first signs appeared in the distance, a sleek shadow moving across the gray rocks. Zira recognized the pattern immediately. It was not an explorer or a natural creature, it was a hunter. Their hearts pounded, but fear did not control them. They had trained their minds to respond with calm strategy rather than panic. The hunter approached cautiously, scanning the terrain with his equipment. Zira and Aaron used the knowledge of the cliffs to their advantage. They remained hidden, moving silently behind rocks and using shadows to conceal their presence. The hunter, confident in his technology, did not expect the ingenuity of two survivors who knew the land intimately. As the hunter drew closer, Zira and Aaron implemented their plan. Rocks were strategically displaced to create false trails, leading the hunter away from their shelter. Mineral shards reflected sunlight into his eyes, temporarily blinding him. The traps worked as intended, slowing him down and causing confusion. Zira felt a surge of determination. Every lesson learned on Kylos, every challenge overcome, was preparing them for this moment. Despite their clever tactics, the hunter was persistent. He adapted quickly, following the correct path with precision. Zira realized that direct confrontation might be inevitable. She whispered to Aaron, "We must be ready to defend ourselves. We cannot let him find the shelter or the supplies." Aaron agreed, preparing his tools and reinforcing his resolve. Together, they became a united force. The hunter reached a narrow pass where Zira had set one of the traps. Rocks tumbled as designed, forcing him to lose balance and stumble. He cursed under his breath, but he quickly recovered. Zira and Aaron moved silently, using the moment to reposition themselves on higher cliffs. They could observe the hunter without being detected, planning their next move carefully. Zira's mind worked rapidly. She considered every possible outcome, every path the hunter could take, and every advantage they had. Finally, she decided to use the terrain itself as a weapon. Loose stones, sharp cliffs, and narrow ridges could slow or trap even the most skilled pursuer. She whispered instructions to Aaron, and together, they executed the plan with precision. As the hunter pursued them deeper into the cliffs, he found himself navigating a labyrinth of obstacles. Loose rocks shifted under his feet, mineral shards reflected blinding sunlight, and hidden paths forced him into dead ends. Zira and Aaron observed silently, their hearts steady. Every move the hunter made only confirmed that they had turned the environment itself into a shield. Hours passed, and the hunter grew frustrated. He had underestimated the intelligence and determination of two humans who refused to surrender. Zira and Aaron remained calm, watching every move and adjusting traps as needed. Finally, the hunter realized that the pursuit was no longer efficient. He paused, assessed the situation, and decided to retreat. His equipment malfunctioned repeatedly, and the terrain had proven too complex for a single person to navigate without risk. Zira exhaled slowly, relief washing over her. The immediate threat was gone. She turned to Aaron, and they shared a quiet smile. They had faced a human threat, the first since her exile, and had survived. The experience had reinforced their confidence and trust. They realized that human courage, intelligence, and teamwork could overcome even the most advanced technology. That night, near the fire, Zira and Aaron reflected on the encounter. "We are stronger than we thought," Aaron said. "Kylos may be harsh, but together, we are unstoppable." Zira nodded. "Every challenge we face teaches us something new. We must continue to learn, adapt, and prepare for whatever comes next." Their bond deepened further, grounded in respect, shared experience, and the knowledge that survival was not only physical but mental. Over the next days, they improved their shelter even more. Zira taught Aaron how to camouflage it from distant detection, how to reinforce weak points, and how to create diversion paths to confuse any future intruders. Aaron shared his knowledge of technology, helping to repair and improve their sensors. Together, they transformed their cave into a stronghold, a place of safety and strategic advantage. Despite the danger, they did not let fear dominate their lives. They continued exploring, gathering minerals, and documenting their surroundings. The hunter's attempt had reminded them that the universe was not always fair, but it also proved that preparation, intelligence, and cooperation could turn even a dangerous situation into a victory. Zira felt a renewed sense of purpose. Kylos was harsh, but it was also a training ground. Every day, they grew stronger and more capable. By the end of the week, Zira and Aaron had established a secure routine, combining survival skills, exploration, and defense strategies. Kylos remained a challenging world, but they had proven that humans could adapt, overcome threats, and thrive even in isolation. The hunter's retreat was a victory, but it also served as a reminder: the universe was unpredictable, and survival required constant vigilance. Zira looked at Aaron, feeling a mixture of pride and gratitude. They had faced hunger, cold, isolation, and human threats. Together, they had turned adversity into opportunity, fear into strategy, and danger into lessons. Kylos had tested them, but it had also revealed the true strength of human determination, ingenuity, and courage. As night fell over the gray cliffs, Zira and Aaron sat near the fire, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges. Yet, they were ready. They had learned to trust each other completely, to face threats with intelligence and courage, and to adapt to a world that seemed determined to defeat them. For the first time since her exile, Zira felt not only survival but hope. Hope that they could continue to explore, thrive, and perhaps even find a way back from the barren moon. Zira and Aaron had settled into a rhythm on Kylos. Their shelter was stronger than ever, water collection was reliable, and they had mapped much of the nearby terrain. Yet, the barren moon still held dangers. The bounty hunter had retreated, but the threat of the colony's judgment loomed in the background. Zira knew that survival on Kylos was only the first step. Returning to Valora would require courage, strategy, and careful planning. One morning, while exploring a narrow canyon to find more water sources, they noticed unusual patterns in the rocks. Certain stones seemed intentionally disturbed, as if someone had passed this way recently. Zira stopped immediately, scanning the area with sharp eyes. "We are not alone," she whispered. Aaron tightened his grip on his tools. "Could it be another hunter?" he asked. Zira nodded. The possibility was real. They decided to observe quietly from a higher cliff. Hours passed as they watched the movement below. It was not the hunter from before, but someone new. A human figure moved cautiously, scanning the cliffs. Zira realized that Kylo's isolation was deceptive. Survival was not just about finding water or shelter, it was also about anticipating threats and understanding human behavior. Zira and Aaron retreated to a hidden area of the cliffs to prepare. They used rocks and natural cover to create traps, setting them along the most likely paths the intruder might take. Sharp mineral shards were positioned to block or slow progress, while loose stones were arranged to create noise and confusion. Every step of the plan relied on their knowledge of the terrain and their ability to think ahead. The intruder began to approach, unaware of the obstacles. Zira and Aaron watched silently, hearts pounding but minds focused. The traps worked perfectly. Loose stones tumbled, forcing the intruder to pause. The reflection of sunlight on mineral shards caused brief confusion. Zero whispered instructions to Aaron, who carefully repositioned more rocks to guide the intruder along a false path. Every movement required precision, patience, and calm. The intruder grew frustrated, but Zira and Aaron remained hidden. They understood that fear and uncertainty were as powerful as physical obstacles. By creating confusion, they forced the intruder to slow down and reconsider his approach. Zira felt a surge of pride. Their combined knowledge, preparation, and ingenuity were turning the barren moon into an advantage. Finally, the intruder realized that the path ahead was more dangerous than expected. The rocks were unstable, the cliffs were treacherous, and unseen obstacles blocked progress. Zira and Aaron watched from above, silent but ready to act if needed. They had turned the landscape itself into a defense, proving that humans could use intelligence and strategy to survive against even the most persistent threats. Despite the success of their traps, Zira knew the danger was not over. The intruder could return with reinforcements or different equipment. She and Aaron spent the next few days improving their shelter and mapping alternate routes for escape. Every rock, every trench, and every reflective shard was carefully placed to maximize safety. The harshness of Kylos had taught them that preparation was the key to survival. As they worked, Zira reflected on how much she had changed since arriving on the moon. She had come as a victim of the colony's punishment, alone and desperate. Now, she was a strategist, a survivor, and a leader. Her experiences had strengthened her physically, mentally, and emotionally. She had faced hunger, isolation, and human threats, and each challenge had made her stronger. Aaron noticed the change as well. "You have become incredible," he said quietly. "I never thought one person could adapt so quickly to such a harsh world." Zira smiled. "It is not just me. We are stronger together. Kylos has tested us, but it has also shown what humans can do when they refuse to give up." Their bond had deepened through these challenges, creating a partnership built on trust, respect, and shared experience. One evening, as the weak light of the Kylos sun faded behind the cliffs, they spotted movement in the distance. This time, it was more organized, multiple figures approaching their territory. Zira's mind raced. The colony had sent more people. They could not allow themselves to be cornered. Every lesson, every strategy, every survival skill they had learned would be tested to the maximum. They prepared their defenses carefully. Traps were reset, rocks were positioned strategically, and reflective materials were placed to create false paths. Zira and Aaron knew that the key to survival was not confrontation but intelligence. They studied the approaching figures, noting their patterns and equipment. Knowledge, not brute force, would be their weapon. The first of the intruders stepped into the traps. Stones tumbled, metal shards reflected sunlight, and the sound caused hesitation. Zira and Aaron watched quietly from higher ground. They did not need to attack directly, the environment itself slowed the intruders, forcing them to think carefully about every step. Zira felt satisfaction in their clever use of Kylo's natural defenses. Hours passed as the intruders tried to navigate the traps. Zira and Aaron remained calm, observing, adjusting, and learning. They realized that human intelligence, combined with understanding of the environment, could defeat even the most advanced technology. Patience and strategy were their greatest assets. Finally, the intruders gave up. Frustrated and unable to progress, they retreated down the cliffs. Zira and Aaron watched them disappear into the gray horizon, hearts steady and minds clear. They had faced multiple human threats and emerged victorious. The moon was harsh, but it could not break their determination or courage. That night, near the fire in their secure shelter, Zira spoke softly. Kylos has tested everything we are. Hunger, isolation, danger, yet we have survived. We have proven that humans can adapt, learn, and overcome even the most impossible odds. Aaron nodded, adding, and together, we are stronger than anything this world can throw at us. Zira realized that Kylos was more than a barren moon. It was a training ground, a place that revealed the true strength of human determination. Survival depended on preparation, intelligence, and teamwork. Hunger and isolation had taught her patience, danger had taught her strategy, and Aaron's companionship had reminded her of the power of human connection. As they rested that night, Zero looked toward the horizon. The cliffs and valleys of Kylos were harsh and unforgiving, but they were also full of lessons. Each challenge had strengthened her body, mind, and spirit. She knew that the colony might still pose threats, but she also knew that she and Aaron were ready. Together, they had turned a barren moon into a place of learning, strength, and hope. And as the weak Kylo's sun rose again, Zero felt determination fill her chest. The challenges of the universe were not finished, but she was ready to face them. Kylos had taught her that humans could survive anything, not by chance, but through courage, intelligence, and cooperation. With Aaron by her side, she felt unstoppable. The barren cliffs of Kylos stretched endlessly under the pale sunlight. Zira and Aaron had grown stronger, wiser, and more resilient than they ever imagined. The moon had tested them with hunger, cold, isolation, and human threats, but they had survived. Their shelter was fortified, their water and food sources secure, and their strategies for navigation and defense were perfected. Now, a new goal emerged, returning to the colony of Valora. Zira studied the maps she had created over the weeks. Every ridge, canyon, and hidden path was recorded carefully. She and Aaron discussed possible routes back to the landing site where they could signal for extraction. They would need patience, timing, and caution. Kylos was unforgiving, and even a small mistake could cost them everything. Yet, the sense of purpose filled them with determination. They were no longer merely surviving, they were planning to reclaim their lives. Their first task was to ensure that they could travel safely without risking exposure to hidden dangers or sudden cliffs. Zero led the way, using her knowledge of the terrain to guide them along stable paths and safe passages. Aaron carried the essential equipment, sensors, water containers, and reflective materials to signal distant ships. They moved cautiously but confidently, trusting each other completely. Each step was a reminder of how far they had come. During the journey, Zira and Aaron encountered remnants of Kylo's harsh environment, loose stones, sharp cliffs, and sudden gusts of wind. They navigated each obstacle carefully, using techniques they had perfected over weeks of survival. Every challenge was a test of their skills and a reminder that preparation, patience, and intelligence could overcome even the most dangerous situations. At one point, they reached a canyon where the wind howled fiercely. Loose stones threatened to tumble from above. Zira instructed Aaron to take cover while she stabilized a narrow path with rocks and debris. Slowly and methodically, they moved across, supporting each other physically and emotionally. When they reached the other side, they paused to catch their breath, sharing a quiet moment of satisfaction. Survival had become a shared experience, filled with trust and teamwork. As they neared the site where a distant colony ship could detect signals, Zira and Aaron prepared their signaling devices. Reflective panels were arranged carefully to catch the weak sunlight, creating flashes visible from far above. Zira checked every connection, every angle, and every reflective surface. Aaron monitored the energy readings, ensuring that the signal would be strong and continuous. Their preparation was meticulous. They had learned that success required careful attention to detail. Hours passed as they waited for a response. The barren cliffs were silent except for the wind, but Zira's heart remained steady. She knew that the colony would detect their signal if they maintained precision and patience. Finally, a distant shimmer in the sky caught Aaron's eye. A small craft descended slowly, its path carefully calculated to avoid the dangerous cliffs below. Relief washed over them. They had succeeded. Their courage, intelligence, and perseverance had brought help. The landing of the colony ship was tense. Zira and Aaron approached cautiously, aware that they were not only returning but also demonstrating that humans could survive impossible conditions. The crew of the ship observed with awe and respect. They had expected an empty moon or a failed survivor, but instead, they found two humans who had endured weeks of isolation, hunger, and danger and who had done so intelligently and courageously. Once aboard, Zira and Aaron were debriefed. The story of their survival spread quickly through the colony. The council, which had once condemned Zira to die, listened in astonishment as she recounted her journey. She spoke of hunger, cold, isolation, human threats, and the lessons learned on Kylos. She emphasized the importance of courage, preparation, and cooperation. Her words were not just a report, they were a testament to human resilience. The council could not deny the evidence. Zira's survival proved that the human spirit was stronger than they had imagined. Mistakes had been made in her exile, but now she stood as a symbol of hope and perseverance. The lessons of Kylos were clear: humans could endure the harshest conditions when they combined intelligence, courage, and trust in each other. Aaron's contribution was recognized as well. His skills, adaptability, and willingness to cooperate had complemented Zira's experience perfectly. Together, they had faced challenges that no single person could have overcome alone. Their story became a shared example of what humans could achieve when they worked together, even against the odds. The return to Valora was emotional for Zira. She saw familiar places and felt the warmth of the colony that she had once thought would betray her. The fear and pain of exile remained as memories, but they were transformed into lessons and strength. She had endured Kylos and returned not only alive but stronger, wiser, and capable of inspiring others. The colony honored them with recognition for their courage and ingenuity. Zira's sentence was officially rescinded, and the council publicly acknowledged her bravery. Yet, she remained humble. Her survival was not just her own achievement, it was a demonstration of human potential. Every obstacle had been overcome through patience, intelligence, and cooperation, not luck. Zira and Aaron were asked to share their knowledge with other explorers and colonists. They taught strategies for survival in harsh environments, methods of resource management, and techniques for using intelligence and planning to overcome danger. Their story became a lesson for the entire colony, inspiring others to believe in the resilience and capability of humans. Even after returning, Zira reflected on Kylos daily. She remembered the barren cliffs, the harsh winds, and the moments of fear and hope. She understood that survival was not just about enduring challenges, it was about learning from them, adapting, and using intelligence and courage to turn obstacles into opportunities. Kylos had tested her in every way possible, and she had passed. As Zira looked at the horizon from Valora, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had survived exile, outwitted human threats, and returned stronger than before. Kylos had taught her that humans could endure anything when they trusted their intelligence, their skills, and each other. Her journey was a story of courage, determination, and hope, a story that would inspire generations to come. Aaron stood beside her, smiling quietly. "We did it," he said. Zira nodded, feeling gratitude and pride. "We survived Kylos, and now we can help others survive as well." Together, they had transformed their ordeal into a lesson, a triumph of human spirit, and a testament to the power of courage, intelligence, and cooperation. The sun set over Valora, casting a warm glow on the colony. Zira felt a calm determination in her heart. The universe was vast and challenging, but humans had the power to endure, to learn, and to thrive. She had faced the impossible and returned stronger. She had survived Kylos, and she had returned with hope, wisdom, and courage. Humanity, she realized, was capable of greatness when it refused to surrender. Zira and Aaron's story became a legend in the colony, a tale of survival, resilience, and the triumph of the human spirit. It reminded everyone that no matter how barren or harsh a world might be, humans could endure, adapt, and thrive. Together, they had turned exile into triumph and danger into opportunity. And as night fell over Valora, Zero looked at the stars, feeling a connection to the vast universe that had tested her. She knew that she would face challenges again, but she also knew that humans were built to overcome them. With courage, intelligence, and trust in each other, nothing was impossible. Kylos had been harsh, but it had not broken her. It had made her stronger. It had taught her that the human spirit could survive anything and return to shine brighter than ever.